The atmosphere in Banja Luka on April 27, 2025 was electric. Fans from Serbia and Armenia filled the arena, chanting and waving flags, instantly making it clear that this wasn't just a boxing match. It was a clash of nations, pride, and legacy. At the center of this tension were two fighters with contrasting journeys. Omer Ametic, Serbia's rising star, carried the weight of expectation on his shoulders. His history of junior European bronze, quarter-final finishes at the World Youth Championships, and a European Championship bronze at 51 kilos last year had marked him as a boxer with talent, but this professional debut was an entirely different test. His opponent, Baregham Harutyunyan of Armenia, though slightly less experienced in the pro scene with a 0-1 record, was no stranger to high-level competition, having claimed silver at 48 kilos in the European Championships. The juxtaposition was stark. Ametic, polished, precise, a technical wizard, and Harutyunyan, a tall, lean, awkward force with long reach and explosive tendencies. The stakes were immediate. Over a mere 4 rounds, a single mistake could decide everything. Fans roared as the fighters touched gloves, white versus black, and the opening bell rang. Even from the first seconds, it was clear this wasn't going to be a conventional bout. Both fighters had styles designed to test the other, with Ametic's footwork and compact punches set against Harutyunyan's reach and unpredictable bursts. The first exchanges were a study in strategy and caution, each man measuring distance, each feint and jab carrying the weight of psychological warfare. By the end of round 1, the stage had been perfectly set, tension, intrigue, and the first whispers of momentum building in Harutyunyan's favor. Round 1 began with a feeling of careful calculation. Ametic, in white, started strong with crisp jabs aimed at the body and head, establishing a rhythm early on. Harutyunyan, however, displayed his trademark awkwardness, jerky, twitchy movements, long levers, and feints that forced Ametic to adjust constantly. The fight initially appeared evenly matched, but subtle details gave Harutyunyan the psychological edge. Despite being a taller fighter, he looked comfortable controlling the center of the ring, using reach to frustrate Ametic. The Serbian's footwork kept him mobile, slipping in and out of range, but each step forward was met by counters designed to disrupt rhythm. The crowd's energy mirrored the tension inside the ring. Serbian fans called for precision and aggression, while Armenian supporters sensed the early dominance of their man. By the end of the round, there were no knockdowns, but the story was emerging. Harutyunyan had dictated distance and controlled the tempo, while Ametic relied on bursts of offense to keep the fight competitive. The round's close highlighted a central drama in boxing psychology. Even when punches don't land cleanly, the fighter who imposes pace often gains the invisible points that weigh on judges, referees, and the audience's perception. Round 2 exploded into action, transforming the fight from a chess match into a dramatic thriller. Midway through, Harutyunyan unleashed a long, windmilling right hand that caught Ametic square, sending the Serbian crashing onto the canvas. It wasn't a heavy knockdown, but in a 4-round fight, carried monumental significance. Ametic had to immediately recover, both physically and mentally, while the crowd erupted in a mix of shock and exhilaration. This knockdown was more than just a point on the scorecard. It was a momentum swing, a psychological blow. Harutyunyan, sensing the shift, pressed the advantage, maintaining an aggressive pace, jabbing, dipping, and landing clean shots to the body. Ametic tried to respond with compact combinations, but the reach and awkward style of Harutyunyan kept him at bay. The round ended with the Armenian clearly in control, establishing that in short-format bouts, one decisive moment can define the narrative. By round 3, both fighters were showing signs of fatigue, but more importantly, strategic adjustments were evident. Ametic attempted to change angles, moving southpaw temporarily, throwing multiple jabs to disrupt Harutyunyan's rhythm, and mixing in body shots to slow his opponent's forward momentum. Harutyunyan, however, remained composed, using his height advantage to maintain distance while varying punch speed to unsettle Ametic. The bout became a game of inches, every step forward met with a precise counter, every feint answered with a calculated defense. The Serbian boxer's technical brilliance was visible, but the Armenian's confidence and reach continued to dictate exchanges. In this mid-fight section, the psychological narrative was critical. Harutyunyan controlled not only the pace but also the perception of dominance, forcing Ametic to play catch-up. Each landed punch reinforced the story in the minds of the audience, who began to sense that the fight's momentum was slipping irreversibly toward the Armenian. Beyond physical exchanges, the fight became a mental duel. Harutyunyan's awkward, twitchy style wasn't just about landing punches, it was about creating uncertainty, making Ametic hesitate, second-guess, and overextend. Every missed punch from Ametic was magnified, every clean jab from Harutyunyan celebrated by fans, fueling confidence and reinforcing the psychological pressure. In boxing, perception often equals points, and here the story was clear: momentum was king. The crowd reacted to each near miss, each shove for position in the clinches, amplifying the tension inside the ring. The psychological narrative intensified as the rounds progressed. Ametic was skilled, resilient, and determined, but every knockdown, every long-range jab from Harutyunyan built the storyline of an unstoppable force, a rising momentum that the Serbian had to fight not just physically but mentally. Entering the fourth and final round, the fight had evolved into a classic short-format thriller. Harutyunyan, black trunks glistening under the lights, exuded confidence. His prior knockdown and consistent work rate had secured him an advantage in every tangible metric. Ametic, despite flashes of brilliance, faced an uphill battle. He needed to dominate the round and deliver a decisive performance to challenge the momentum. Touching gloves once again, both fighters acknowledged the final round's high stakes. Fans knew this was not just about points. It was about pride, strategy, and the narrative arc of the fight. The round promised a tense sprint to the finish, where endurance, precision, and mental resilience would determine the final story. The final round delivered everything promised. Ametic tried to break through with rapid combinations, attempting to close the distance and land meaningful blows to swing momentum back in his favor. Harutyunyan responded with disciplined defense, constant footwork, and well-timed counters. Each jab, each slip, each feint became a story beat, a mini-drama that kept the audience on edge. Despite his efforts, Ametic struggled to penetrate the reach advantage, while Harutyunyan's awkward angles and body shots effectively neutralized major threats. The psychological tension peaked. Would the Serbian deliver a last-minute heroics, or would the Armenian maintain his dominance? Fans could almost feel the mental calculations of each fighter, the way seconds stretched under the pressure of possibility. As the clock ticked down, both fighters engaged in the last flurry of exchanges. Ametic landed some solid combinations, showcasing his skill and resilience, but Harutyunyan's energy, confidence, and precision remained superior. The Armenian's ability to control range and pace defined the closing moments, emphasizing the importance of consistent strategy over momentary bursts of aggression in short-format fights. The tension in the arena reached a crescendo, with each punch echoing the stakes and the months of preparation both fighters had invested. By the final bell, the narrative was clear. Harutyunyan had dominated, setting the stage for what should have been a decisive result. When the scores were announced, the fight was declared a draw. Shock rippled through the crowd and commentators alike. Many believed Harutyunyan had won comfortably, given his knockdown, superior work rate, and control of distance. The decision introduced a new layer to the narrative, the often frustrating role of judges in boxing, and how scoring can sometimes contradict what the eyes and instincts perceive. The post-fight reactions, including the disbelief on the Armenian's face and the sportsmanlike acknowledgement from Ametic, added dramatic tension, highlighting both the unpredictability of boxing and the fine margins that can define a fighter's record. In the aftermath, the fight became a reference point for short-format professional bouts. Harutyunyan's performance cemented him as a rising force in the IBA.PRO circuit, while Ametic's valiant effort, despite the knockdown and draw decision, showcased his resilience and technical skill. Analysts dissected the fight's critical moments, the impact of reach, psychological pressure, knockdowns, and strategic packing in a 4-round sprint. Fans on social media erupted in debate, increasing the fight's visibility and solidifying its status as a memorable clash. Ultimately, the bout told a story beyond punches. It was a narrative of momentum, strategy, and the cruel beauty of professional boxing, leaving audiences hungry for both fighters' next chapter.